Okay, we're back. We're back to the regularly scheduled programming. Hopefully that No Talk Obsidian was not too annoying for a lot of you. I kind of enjoyed it actually. I got to listen to the birds. Springtime is always good for the birds. Unfortunately, the bugs come out too, so can't have everything. All right, so let's see. This is some Georgia Jasper, right? And I'm going to make a little arrowhead out of this. I'm going to cheat and not care about maximizing it. I'm just going to get rid of the cortex and see first what I got. The reason why I'm saying I'm not going to maximize it is because I don't know what's going to happen with this piece. I picked a dicey one, as always. See what happens. It's raw. It's not heat treated. I do have a heat treat going. Hopefully, it'll be ready by tomorrow. I had a feeling that's going to happen. I had a feeling. That's why I said I'm not going to maximize it. I can still do something with this at all. Anyway, see how thin it is right there? So, this is raw Georgia Jasper. It's nice stuff, actually. Yeah, this is not a no bark video. It's getting hot out, so that I don't know if it makes the dogs edgy or what. Maybe they fight over their little territorial shade areas. I don't know. They've been cranky all morning. So if they start making a ruckus, I'll stop talking. How's that? And then I'll start back up again. Because I can't resist. Right? Right. Is it true that I can't resist talking? No, I can resist it easily. I resisted talking about all kinds of stuff, actually. Not only just resisting talking, I resist talking about stuff. I try to keep it neutral, like I was saying. I don't think anybody is neutral about everything, right? I always say, right. Anyway, I don't know. There's probably some people out there that are neutral about everything. Impartial. They don't really have strong views one way or the other. Happy-go-lucky, I guess you call it. I don't know. I heard back in the day that anyone who is a moderate is someone who can't make up their mind. That's a low blow. Yeah. I won't go that low. But there are some things, that you got to make your mind. You you got to make up your mind on, because if not, you will be taken advantage of. Yeah, there's people out there who are just looking for people who are accepting of all kinds of weird stuff, so they can get away with it. So they can get away with what they're doing that they're not supposed to be. All right. How big is this? I don't know. Let's see. It's more than 2 inches, so it qualifies. More than 2 inches long. Qualifies as good size true arrow point. You know, it's actually on the larger side if it's 2 inches long. I wish I knew exactly what the average was. But you had to add up the length of every single true arrow point and divide it by the number of true arrow points. Come up with the average. I don't know if anyone's done that. Has anyone done that? Let me know, because I'd like to see it. They took... has someone taken all the known data of all the arrowheads in existence that have little scales next to them in the photographs and everything that's been measured, and just add them all up and divide it by the number of arrowheads? True arrow points, not the little dart points and stuff like that. I'd be curious to know if... I know it has not been done, but if it's been done to some extent, I'd like to see that too. If you look on projectilepoints.net, they do give you averages in the descriptions, which is pretty cool. So you know you're within range if you want to reproduce a certain point type. Now I'm going to continue making certain point types on my videos, but in my spare time I'm doing mostly art points and stuff. Just making whatever. Not even paying attention to what it could be or what it looks like. That last Stockton I made, I think it's a little bit too large for a Stockton corner notch, Obsidian. I think it's a little bit large for that style. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. I'll just go with the flow. It's not one of the arrowheads I would make in my spare time. But I kind of just went with the flow on that one. All right. Something I'm going to do more of, because it's getting old trying to make everything to spec. Yeah. It's getting old. It's getting, yeah, you know, I don't know, don't like it. I know it's disappointing to a lot of people. They want to know the exact dimensions and all that. Of course, it's important for museum work if you could do museum type stuff. But if you're doing museum work, you should be provided with all that information. Right? The person commissioning the job should be providing you with all that information. So if you want to get into that, just do museum work or do actual reproductions and you do the research. Yeah. Do it on your own. Anyways, with this one here, I'm going to try to make it look like a real one, because it's a video. Yep. All right. But just be aware, if you're tuning in, I don't always make them to the correct size, as evidenced by the last video. Just so you know, all this information is just FYI, for your information type information, and something for me to talk about while I try to reduce this down to a workable preform. Yeah, one of the secrets of these things is you get it thin enough and you can make anything out of it. Thin it down far enough and all you got to do is trim around the edges. You can make anything you want, as long as you get it thin enough first. That's the problem. Get it thin enough first. That's why some people actually order pre-made bifaces and refined bifaces, because it's already thinned down. They just need to trim around the edges and they got what they want. They'll buy the pre-made preform, or refined biface, I should say, and then they just shape it, or they leave it, whichever. But yeah, I've talked to a few people and found out what they do with the refined bifaces. Most of the guys are shaping it to whatever they want. So this material is a little bit steppy, but it's typical of raw stone. Yeah. The highest quality raw stone is not as steppy. That's what makes it high quality. Not only does it flake well, but it's less steppy. And why and how does that occur? What is the physics behind step fractures? A lot of it has to do with the strength of the material itself. It has to have the special strength or a special property that allows it to be hit extremely hard in the striking area and also carry the flake. So it can't crush. It has to carry the flake through flexibility, and then as it's traveling, as the fracture's traveling, the material itself cannot interfere with the flow or with the shock wave. If the material interferes with it somehow, with either a defect or an inconsistent area, then it stops and it pops out in whatever direction is the least resistance. So if it's doing that, if it's got good non-crushing and the flakes do travel, but it tends to step and stop and go in weird ways, it's not high quality. It's got to have at least three things: strength of edge, so it doesn't crush, ease of, flaking, and unobstructive flake path or shock wave or whatever you want to call it. That's how you judge what's good. High quality stuff. Now, high quality is on a spectrum. So if I say it's high quality, some people might not think it's high quality because it has to be more perfect than what I think would meet the high quality standard. And some people say the opposite. I'll say something's low quality and they say, no, it's pretty high quality because I like, I can deal with a little bit of inconsistency. I don't like it looking too perfect, so I would consider it high quality, You know what they tell me? I think it's high quality even though it has some issues. But you said it was medium or low quality. I don't think so. So it's all on a spectrum, and it depends on who you talk to. But new guys, they have no clue what's what. I mean, they don't know what's even anything as far as high quality or low quality. They're totally in the dark when they start. I remember being there, totally in the dark. I didn't know what was good and what wasn't. And people tell me that this is good quality material, I would have a tremendous amount of trouble with. And people that would say, that's bad stuff, I said, I don't know. I can nap it. It's pretty good. Same with tools. Some people think steel is terrible. I think it's pretty good. Some people think that antler is terrible. I think it's all right. I don't use a lot of it because it's anxiety material. It's not consistent, but it's still okay. I mean, if I really want to put an extremely sharp edge on stone, I would use antler, because antler has this ability to flake the stone. Some stones, not all stone, but some types of stone, flake it extremely well and creates an extremely sharp edge. I don't know how it does it, what the physics are, but antler tends to do that with a lot of the high quality stuff. You can put on an extremely sharp edge if that's what you're looking for with antler. All right. And antler. Don't go using teeth or something like that, because there are some people that say you can use like a rabbit's tooth or coyote tooth or some other tooth to nap with. I've tried all kinds of animal teeth to nap with, and immediately the tooth snaps right away, unless you're napping on something extremely, extremely soft, like Obsidian. I suppose Obsidian doesn't cause a tooth to snap as bad as regular chert. But like if I was doing this particular point with a piece of tooth, or with any kind of tooth, the tooth would snap off. The end of the tooth, it would chip, just like if you were to take the stone and try to chip it with your teeth. You know, stick it in your mouth, try to chip this with your teeth, see what happens. You know what's going to happen. And yet there are some people that still say, you can nap with a tooth. Yeah. All right, well, stick the piece you think is going to be nappable with a tooth in your mouth and try to nap it with your teeth. See what happens. Yeah. Just testable. I have yet to see the toothed napper. Like, is anyone making YouTube videos napping the arrowheads with their teeth? No? Why? If you listen to some people, it should be okay. It should be A-okay. Yeah. So don't listen to everything. And don't listen to me either. Some people have success napping with tools. I don't know how they do it. I don't know if they're being honest. They might be. Who knows? They might have figured it out. Every time I try to use something that's like a tooth or whatever, that kind of material, it'll snap. Anyway, there's my rant on that stuff. So yeah, people would tell me that steel is not good for napping, and I would say, wait a minute. Wait a second. Have you seen my videos? No. I thought you was using aluminum though. Yeah, I use a lot of aluminum. People know that I use aluminum. Without watching my videos, they know I use aluminum. So sometimes they see me at a Knapping and they go, "Is that steel or aluminum?" I said, "It's steel." Really? Yeah. You mean like regular steel from the store? Steel from the store? Store steel? Yeah. Nothing special? It's not hardened steel or nothing? No. It's just nails. Mild steel. And then they go, "Wow, I didn't know. How about if I just use this regular screwdriver? Can I use a screwdriver, a regular screwdriver instead of this? How's that?" Well, it's not regular. It's not the mild steel, is it? No. It's probably not going to work as good, although it does work. You get a cheap screwdriver, and yeah, I want a cheap screwdriver made of mild steel. They're not supposed to be made of mild steel. The tips are supposed to be hardened on screwdrivers, but once in a while you'll find a screwdriver that it's not good quality for screwdriving, but it's good quality for knapping. So if you got somebody that wants to throw away their old, or not the old, but their low quality screwdriver, grab it and use it as a pressure flaker. If you're in the boat that you don't want to spend any money on your tools, you can knap with a low quality screwdriver as long as the steel is not hardened. So now you know. This is not a screwdriver steel, type steel. It's a nail, spike nail. And yeah, some of you guys know that steel gets hardened as you pound against stuff. So yeah, this will harden up on the tip. So you got to keep, not only do you have to maintain it because it gets rough, but you have to maintain it because it gets hard in spots and it starts to knap in weird ways. It starts to cause steps and cracks and stuff on the edge, crushings and stuff because it's too hard. And some people have an aha moment going, aha, that's why my steel isn't working, because it's hardening as I pound on it. Yep. Could be. Could very well be that your steel is hardening and you need to keep maintaining it. You know, some people's technique is more harsh than others. And the tips will harden. Same with copper. Copper hardens with pounding also. Aluminum does not. I don't think aluminum hardens that way, although I could be wrong. Could be wrong on that, I'm not sure. But whatever the case, just be aware of that too. Alright. I think I might leave this a bit thick, but it's harder to make something out of it if it's really thick. We'll see. I'm going to trim it down a little bit. Let's see. I'll trim it and regularize it and see if I can thin it down further after trimming it. Now you might be thinking, instead of me talking about what I just talked about, I could have talked about my motivation behind each flake. Why did I do that flake? How did I prepare for it? Why did I prepare for it in a certain way and not another way? What are the many ways to prepare? Are there different ways to prepare for the flakes? You know, I could have talked about that instead of wasting everybody's time talking about stupid stuff. Even if I talked about that stuff, you're going to knap differently anyway. You know that, right? Your motivations are not going to be the same as mine. You might end up with the same result, with different motivations for each flake, or different ways of producing very similar results. That's why when someone asks, how did they do it in the past? You can say, nobody knows. There are many different ways. All right? Nobody knows exactly how they did it. And even if they did, that's just one napper. Does that mean all the nappers nap that way? For that particular point? Does that mean that all the nappers making that particular point had the same toolkit? Does that mean that they all had the same level of experience? No, 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 and no. So you can't say, I know how it was made. No, you just can't pluck one out of the... Pluck an arrowhead out of history and say, I know how that was made. Because I know what the napper's skill level was. I know what he's used for tools. I know his motivations behind every flake. I know his technique and all that. That's what you would have to know how it was made. Guess what? You don't know those things. And some may say, we don't need to know all those things. It's not that bad. Everything is really similar, you know. Okay, fine. There's little differences and blah, blah, blah. Fine, there's little differences, but it's still enough similarities that we can say we know how it was made. Well, yeah, you can say that if you know that there were just very similar nappers with similar experience with similar tools. If you know that, then yeah, you can say they were made in a certain way. But you don't know that they were similar. Yeah. For all we know, they could have been very independent. You know, they could have had their own little Flintknapping communities and different ideas and separated themselves into different little clans and groups of nappers, just like tribes, right? There were literally thousands of different tribes and sometimes dozens even within the same language group. Dozens of different tribes with different ideas, different cultures, different ways of life, and different ways of dress, different ways of making stuff, and different arrowheads within the same tribe. And on the other side, many tribes would borrow the arrowhead styles from other tribes, so the arrowhead existed across cultural boundaries, and many tribes shared the same arrowheads, even though they didn't act the same, speak the same, or use the same type of stone, or had the same tools. You didn't know that? Now you know. How do I know? I don't know for sure. All I can do is make the statement and see if there's anything that would contradict it. Is there anything that would contradict the idea that the nappers were different? Can we prove that they were the same? I suppose in some cases we can. We can prove that they were the same if the points are just too similar to be made with different techniques. Are there such points out there that are just way too similar to say that they were made with different techniques? I don't know. I'm trying to think here. There's probably exceptions, yeah. I mean, the Cody complex comes to mind. They all look very similar. They all look like they were made the same way. So that could be one exception. Cody complex points. You know what those are? Scott's Bluffs and Edens and stuff. They could have been very standardized. They look like they might have been. I have to get into a certain mindset to make one. I was trying to make one the other day with collateral flaking. Collateral flaking is a very intensely particular style. I mean, it's not just a particular style, it's very intense. You have to be able to set those platforms up in the striking areas in a very consistent way. And they probably searched out certain tools to do that with, and certain tool designs to do that with, or certain techniques to do that with. So there's probably an exception there. So yeah, that would be a way to say that if we could find the best, or one of the best ways to make Cody points, that is a good possibility they used that technique in the past. Now, the technique I'm using with steel was not used in the past because they didn't have steel. Now, some tribes had copper. Yes, they did. Back in the day, before European contact, they did have copper, and they were using it to knap arrowheads. Yeah, it's called the copper culture. I mention it in many videos, but unless I continuously mention it over and over again periodically, people, they don't know. They're new to the channel, or they're new to knapping. They don't know that there's such thing as a copper culture in Native American history. Just look it up. I got a couple videos on proof that they use copper tools, at least for pressure flakers. Oh yes. Not everybody. The Great Lakes region is a good area for that type of material, because it's in the Great Lakes region. There are places that have the biggest amount of surface exposed copper in the world. Yeah, in the world. So if you got a surface exposed copper to that extent where you can just go to the lake and get some copper on the surface, you know that they're going to make a lot of stuff out of it. And they did. There's a lot of existing copper artifacts. All right. Now, some people like to leave it unrefined, you know, because on some of the artifacts, these edges are not picked smooth. They leave these very bold flakes on the edge. They don't go back and pick off the deltas on the real ones. On some of the real ones, they don't pick off the deltas. They just leave the original flake there without regularizing it. I tend to regularize it because it adds to the instructional nature of the video, as far as how do you regularize it. What do you mean regularize it? Show me. Okay, so I'll show you how to regularize it. But just be aware that not all the Native Americans did this. Sometimes they would just do a pass and leave all the deltas on there. I see that a lot on Dalton, for example. Dalton points, they'll run a pass of nice flakes, and they won't remove the deltas in between. And sometimes it looks a little bit serrated, in addition to whatever other serrations they might put on there. Or they can actually leave it that way so it creates serrations. You know, it depends on the flint napper. Yep. I could leave it like that, right? And it would be, what kind of point would that be in Georgia? I could just leave it like this. Or whatever other areas or other tribes made stuff from Georgia Jasper. You might be able to find this stuff in other states, or they transport it to other states. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not an expert, and I stopped doing that kind of research. Most of my research these days is mostly has to do with very, very old stuff. Not just Native American stuff, but old world stuff. I'm looking back even further than Neolithic or Mesolithic, right? I'm going back further in a lot of my research these days, just so I can get more familiar with how the brain affected napping and how napping affected the brain, the human brain. That kind of thing. Okay, I almost hate to nap it anymore because I like that that area of cortex there. Yep. See if I can pick out some of these and ruin my utility knife blade. Yeah, get my fingers. It just puts metal marks in there. Maybe I'm uncoordinated. I don't know. Or I just can't see. Let's see. Just put some more metal marks on it. Yeah. No, it's not working. Besides, I already broke off the part of the tip that I need to use to pick those off. You lose that tip right away. Let's see. How can I get rid of metal marks? In case you don't know, you can try to get rid of some of them by rubbing with the same kind of stone in that area. Just rub them, try to rub out the metal marks. Yeah. Although it makes it look funny. I said before that it makes it look funny. You know, when you do this rubbing, sometimes it changes the look of the whole thing. All right. Okay, so where do I go from here? This is an arrowhead. I mean, they use them like this. This is a reproduction of one type of arrowhead, I forget. Fort Ancient or something? I don't know. But let's see if I can ruin it and make something else out of it. Mm-hmm. Let me see. trying to think. I don't know any Georgia points. I have failed to research the Georgia points. So I'm just going to thin it a little bit here while I try to decide what I'm going to do with it. I don't think the Fort Ancient were from Georgia. I just mentioned that because I think I remember seeing them look like this. There we go. I like it when it cooperates. It's so nice. This is kind of tough. So it's not like the best stone for these little bitty arrowheads, but it still works pretty good. The best stone allows you to get it super duper amazingly and ridiculously thin, because it's got some flexibility. Some stone has flexibility enough that you can hammer all day on some of these things and the tips don't snap off. Yeah. This one's kind of close to having that property. I just hammered away on that tip and it didn't blow it away. It didn't do a bad thing. I'm afraid to pressure flake it though. I can pressure flake it really, really thin. Yeah. It would get a little more narrow, but I could pressure flake it really, really thin. If I'm lucky, and if it's a cooperative stone. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to get rid of some of the dull areas that I just put in with the abrader. I just installed a dull area. Okay, without step fracturing, that's the problem. Got to do it without step fracturing it. Now I was trying to adjust the light when I was doing I was adjusting my lamps when I was doing the Stockton point with Obsidian. Try to get a good lighting situation. The problem with that is I had to keep moving it back because this light, if I get it too close and it gets right on the workpiece, I can't swing with the billet. I don't have enough room. So I got to move it back. And then moving back and forth of the lights and stuff during the videos gets on my nerves. I'm so touchy. Yeah. And why does it matter? If you're napping and something's getting on your nerves, it affects your napping, believe it or not. It really does. So how did they do it back in the day to avoid all the stresses and stuff that they had to deal with so they can actually sit down and flint knap? That's an excellent question. I don't know how they can get into frame of mind knowing that at any minute a stupid angry bear could come into the campsite and start wreaking havoc. Stuff like that. Or, you know, your neighbor decides that they're tired of fishing in the same spot, so they want your spot to come over and they start fishing in your spot. And you go, wait a second, that's our dinner. What are you doing? We're doing in our spot. So you got to go over there and see what's going on. Give us some arrowheads, man, and we'll leave. Okay, fine. Because we're fishing in your spot because we ran out of arrowheads. We can't hunt no deer. who knows? So I don't know how they got to the point where they could clear their mind enough to sit down and create these beautiful arrowheads in some cases. It's not something you can do while under high amounts of stress. It affects the knapping, or maybe that's just modern man. Modern man is not equipped to do these things while under high stress. It's possible. Yeah. That would be terrible. It means we are regressing in that respect, as well as the ability to actually make things. I think we're regressing in our ability to make things, but regressing in our ability to deal with stress also, that's not good. That's not good at all. Oh, I'm just going to put stems and barbs on this. Yeah. I'm not going to imitate any certain type of style of point. I'm thinking I should just make a reasonable stem and reasonable barbs. Try not to snap it. I could make a Hernando out of that, right? I already made one on video, I think. Yeah. So I'll do something else. After I thin down the base. I'm supposed to thin this down earlier, according to my own procedure. I'm supposed to thin the ends down first, so I don't have to do this at the end. So you don't have to do the ends at the end, because it's dicey, it's risky. The tip could pop right off, just like on the Flint Ridge point. And that I was napping and the tip popped off. Yeah. It's nice and sharp. All right. I'm gonna make a Hernando with pointy barbs. How's that? I don't even know if that's a real thing. I like this tool for notching and general flaking. I like these spatula tools. I like them better than the rounded pressure flakers, the rounded tip. But the rounded tip pressure flakers allow you to drive really long flakes. This one doesn't. But this is good for notching and for making barbs. I like the spatula tool for making barbs better than the rounded tip tool. Am I losing some of the edge to some of this flaking? I think I'm losing the edges to some of this flaking. I know I lost some of that ear on the stem just now. If I can keep this in frame. Yeah, it's so nice when it flakes well. And you new guys that are doing notching, I get a lot of questions on notching. Notching really is the hardest thing for new guys usually. Even harder than thinning. And it's hard for everybody. Yeah. Notching is hard for everybody. So don't feel too bad. Unless you've got your technique down and you've got your material perfectly heat treated. This is not heat treated, by the way. That's probably one of the reasons why it's stalling, because the flakes are not going to pop out easily. Anyway, if you have a technique down where you got it to where notching is a science, it's going to look really easy if you watch those videos, and you won't be able to do it. You got to get the exact system down for some of these notching guys that do excellent notch work. You know, the narrow entry stuff and all that. You got to do the exact same thing. Get the science down exactly the same. Now, does that mean that you can say that back in the day, in the old days, then in order to get a certain type of notching, you would have to have a certain technique, certain tools? That way you know how they were made? Is that a way to know how they were made? Yeah, that's one way. Does it guarantee you know exactly how they were made? No. Because you never know. You never know. There could be more than one way. Yeah. But it's a good indication that you're on the right track if there's only a certain way to do it. Yeah. But as soon as someone else comes up with a different way, you got to give up your theory that that's the only way. That becomes a way, not the way. So then you're back to, we don't know how they were made. Yeah. People get all ticked. Ah, man. Should be able to, what's so hard about knowing how they were made? What's so hard about it? I used to get that a lot in the different forums that I would participate in. I mean, I wouldn't get it. I mean, I would see it. Why is it so hard to know how they were made? Why? Guys would ask, why is it so hard? Shouldn't be hard at all. Well, this is why, because everybody has their own techniques, and there are many different ways to do it. That's why. And there are some nappers that take a lot of risks. Back in the day, especially. It seems like some of them were making these points difficult just so they could be difficult. Maybe they didn't want anyone copying their stuff, so they could identify who killed what. Or who killed who? Yeah. Well, we didn't do it because we can't make those arrowheads. They're too hard. Well, there you go. So we know who did it. Or someone would kill something and another person would claim it. And you would say, no, it's not yours, dude, because look, the arrow that killed it has my arrowhead because no one can make them like me. Okay? God, dang it. So there it is. There's some reasons, you know, a couple of reasons right there why people would sit down and make extra, especially difficult arrowheads. What other reasons could there be? When you're fighting, you know, warfare arrows. You can scare people by having really nasty arrowheads on the arrows. You go, I don't want to mess with those guys. We're not going to mess with those guys. Look, have you seen their arrowheads? No, what do they look like, man? They got barbs and serrations and tips that stick in your bones and you can't get them out. You know, you gotta... They're nasty. I don't want to mess with those guys. Yeah, but they're over there stealing all our firewood. Look at them all. Yeah, but I don't want to mess with them. You've seen them barbed arrowheads. Forget it. You know, that kind of thing. And yeah, those guys make them so you can't shoot them back. They break right across the neck. So when you pick up one of their arrows and all it is a little nick stuck in there, in the tip of the arrow, the top part's gone. Yeah, those stupid clever guys. Can't shoot the arrows back. Don't want to mess with them. So there you go. So I'm not going to mess with this one anymore. I'm just going to leave it like this. Because if I notch it deeper, I run the risk of blowing away the barbs for sure. Although I could persnickety that even further and make that barb more narrow and go in a little deeper. But no. I got another arrowhead video where I make Dolores points. Dolores, D-O-L-O-R-E-S, that have bigger or longer barbs in this, I think. But that's a heat treat from Texas and stuff. Anyway, this is raw stone, so I don't dare go any deeper with the notches because I would have to add a lot of pressure, a lot of excess pressure. And you know what happens when you do excess pressure when you're notching, right, boys and girls? We all know what happens. Oh yes, we do. So there you go. I don't know what you would call that, or if anyone was making these types out of Georgia Jasper back in the day, but I like it. Okay, that's it.